All right, so welcome once again to Prime Morning, and this is a segment where we get to have conversations about some of the topical issues that we're dealing with here in the country. And joining me for the conversation, we have Richard Champong, Member of Parliament for Bia East, and then Dr. Dixon Adomaku-Kesi, former Member of Parliament, Anyanso Tum, and Kwame Owusu-Danso, lawyer and Executive Director, Mines, Land and Mines Watch Ghana. You're welcome.
Thank you.
To the show. And well, this is the first time I'm encountering you here on the show because I joined, not too long ago. That was last week, actually. So you're welcome. Apparently you've been regulars. You're already known to the show. And so the viewers know you. But let's delve straight into the issues we're having to discuss this morning. The most critical one has to do with the flooding situation, and now it's got into a point where buildings are collapsing. We had the Adenta issue, then we also had yesterday the Aveno one, and all of these things are claiming lives and, distraction to property. So it becomes important that we talk about that. This morning I was saying that people should start snitching. If you have some building in your area that you think is suspicious, or you think that it's not being properly put together, you can let us know, and the authorities are also watching so they can take action, and so that we can avert disaster. There's one in Osu that the authorities have noticed, and apparently they're going to be pulling it down. I know that building. That building has been looking that way for a long time. Apparently, during the downpour over the weekend, a part of the building collapsed. There was a partial collapse. So I think it was a cue for the authorities to move in. All right. So let's start with you.
Yeah.
What you make of?
Well, I know Richard will not be happy, but I think that Mr. President, with his delay in picking an environment minister, literally is telling Ghanaians that the link between the climate changes and what is happening is not very important to him. It's quite clear to the world that climate change, vis-a-vis the heavy downpours, are very much related to our environment. And the promotion of people planning well, based on our spacing, and the need to do dredging, which then even begs the question: do we still have a sanitation minister? I think it tells a lot. So I'm of the opinion that, first of all, we need military-grade municipal assemblies. What I mean by that is that disciplined assemblies where people cannot just be building in waterways, municipal assemblies where the approval processes for building are very apt, and then the engineers are checking the buildings to make sure that the cement to sand ratio is appropriate, or the type of iron rods being used are appropriate. So these are things we need to do. If you leave Ghanaians on our own, because of our Walasa, attitude, we'll do anything anywhere. And I think that in my experience, human beings by nature need to be managed and disciplined.
True.
And I think that is lost on us as Ghanaians. And unfortunately, some of the rhetoric leading up to the election were almost as if that when the NDC comes, all the disapprovals by many of the assemblies will be approved. And people are going out doing all kinds of things without regard to, the laid down building codes in this country. So I think, one, Mr. President needs to up his game on giving us an environment minister who can promote and let people appreciate, climate change, and also, more importantly, ensure that the sanitation ministry is doing the necessary dredging in this country. And then plastics. In our case, unfortunately, women have been seen and men dumping plastics
Refuse.
into the waterways, and when these blockades happen, you can't then have free flow of water, and lives are being lost through drowning and building collapse and all of these things. Very troublesome. So I'll encourage the NDC administration to, as it is, go back to the environment, because it's very important. And we all know that developing countries, we are even struggling more with the climate change. Look at Keta Sea Defense issues. Look at Wager Dam issues. And unfortunately, as difficult as Ghanaians are, you tell them don't come and live close to a dam. And it's either they don't hear in the local language or they just don't understand or appreciate. So we have a lot of work to do.
Kwame, do you agree with Doc that it has to do with the lack of an environment minister and all that? It makes reference to the fact that, we're indisciplined ourselves, and so we need to be checked.
Well, as to whether or not it is as a result of the lack of environment minister, I think I do not have that answer. I want to believe that the president, in his wisdom, has decided to take a pause and look at
over 6 months.
Well, I mean, I think we are not seated comfortably in the mind of the president to want to assume that we know how he thinks. I think that whatever it is that he's doing is in the benefit or is in the interest of the generality of the Ghanaian people. It's for our benefit. So we need to allow the president to decide when he wants to decide, albeit that, yes, we need an environment minister. I think that the right person
I'd want you to pause for me. We're joined by DO2 Desmond Aka, Head of Public Relations of the Ghana Fire Service. I just want him to give us an overview of what they've seen in the last few days since the rains started. Good morning to you, Desmond Aka, and thank you for making time to speak with us. So you've been observing a number of things. One, there's been a number of fires that you're having to go out there to put out, and then we've also had the collapsing buildings. What generally, or before then, there's some of the things that we will be aware of, or that will come will be captured by the media, but there are probably some other things that we are not aware of. Give us an overview of some of the incidents you're having to deal with in recent times since the rain started.
All right, so let me thank you for the opportunity and say a very good morning to your cherished viewers. I think for the past few days, we've had to attend countless number of incidents ranging from fire, flood, rescue, as well as structural collapse. And in all these occasions, we have responded swiftly to help rescue all savable lives, as well as extinguish these fires. Most of these fires could have been prevented. And it's unfortunate that we had to lose, especially the police, Central Police Barracks Annex, to this fire. If you look at the tons of combustible materials in there, it contributed to the spread of fire. And then also, we still have challenges with robust infrastructure as far as water supply is concerned. We still have challenges with our hydrants. Most places where Ghana water rationing schedules affect water supply, it means that when we get there, it becomes very difficult for us to get water flowing through the various hydrants, and therefore we have to mobilize as many tenders as much as possible to be able to contain the situation. We've even had support from water tankers from various assemblies, and that has really helped us. And then in terms of the structural collapse incident that we have been attending, it tells us that most of the structures that we have in this part of our country, especially in the capital, are compromised. And therefore, we are happy that per the Interior Minister's report that there have been some 16 structures earmarked for demolition. I believe that when these demolitions are done, it will go a long way to help us to be able to avert some of these structural collapse that tend to end the lives of others. And some of the challenges that we've also had to face in dealing with some of the rescues, especially when it comes to the structural collapses, the lack of modern cutting tools, heavy equipment that would help us to ram and to cut through the rubble to be able to get to where those who are trapped are, so as to be able to effect effective rescue. And therefore, we have had to rely on other bodies to help us with some of these tools to be able to be effective during our search and rescue efforts. So this also goes to hammer the fact that as a service, we need to be seriously be retooled in order to help us to be able to be effective in the delivery of our mandate. And therefore, we would want to call on government to hasten the procurement processes so that we could have access to the 100 tenders that were promised us somewhere in November during the budget week.
All right. So
rescue and the ancillary equipment that we may need.
All right. Desmond, I'd want us to take them one after the other, starting with the fire at the police quarters in Accra Central. You say it could have been prevented. Advise the public. How are we supposed to do it? First of all, what probably may have started the fire during a rain?
Well, a lot of factors come to play when fires start during rainstorms. For instance, if there is a compromised electrical installation, when there is any lightning strike, it could aggravate the situation and then spark off a fire. And then once the fire starts, and then there are also not fire protection system in place in the affected property, it makes the fire spread quickly. Again, where we have lots of fuel load, chain of fuel load in the affected structure, it helps the fire to rage on, and then it becomes very difficult to contain. And therefore, if these, for instance, if the fire protection equipment are non-existent, inadequate of time for people to call on us to come in to assist them manage the fire. It makes the fire spread quickly. It makes the fire get out of hand. And then it tends to destroy everything in its way. And then also, if there is also what we call poor housekeeping, the way we pack our stuff, if we pack our stuff even to the ceiling level, when it has contact with the electrical bulbs, and then also if there is poor ventilation in the area,
all right,
depending on whatever we are storing in there, if they are organic source or materials, they could self-combust if ventilation is poor, what we call spontaneous ignition, without body introducing any external heat source. Those things, if there's so much heat buildup, they could self-ignite and then create situations like that. And then where we have people not being so serious with their electrical safety, they are also being careless with the use of their gas cooking apparatus and all. Yeah. There could be some gas leakages. Inadvertently, they may not even be aware. Once you strike a match or you light up your lighter, definitely you are going to experience a flash of light, and if care is not taken, it gets out of hand. And it
right. Right. Yeah, thank you very much, due to Desmond Aka, Head of Public Relations, Ghana Fire Service. we've taken note of all the advice that you're giving us, and I hope that people will work on them so that we can avert some of these tragedies that are happening. But back to you, Kwame. So yeah, we've heard, and one of the things that they've said, key amongst them is that they're talking about retooling.
Yeah.
And they're talking about how hydrants are being compromised.
Yes.
And all that. It's worrying. But you'd also would want to think that if they were doing proper inspections of buildings, consistently, because they're supposed to do that. And here at Multimedia, I know they come and check. They're looking out for
Selective.
But yes, you'd expect that. But you'd also understand that they would say they're constrained.
Manpower.
Yeah, manpower challenges.
Well, I think, that's literally sums up, the whole crisis and why we've not been able to deal with the nuanced, challenges that we're faced with. But it is important to also look at it from a binary perspective. And when I say binary, I'm referring to authority and public. We have a lot of agencies that are supposed to ensure that these things do not occur.
Yeah.
We have agencies that are supposed to ensure strict compliance and enforcement of the laws which does exist in our books. But oftentimes, even the inspections that you're talking about are merely performative as opposed to proper enforcement. They go there, they carry cameras, they are seen to be working, and it doesn't really yield any result for us. Now, you would admit that we have a lot of these buildings sitting on even drainages and sitting on waterways. I cite you an example. Where I live in Ashoman Estate, there's a particular house that is seated on a drainage. And so they had to reduce the size of the drainage to accommodate the building. And that is what is happening. Engineers have been there. They allude to the fact that the siting of that property is the main reason why we are seeing flat.
Which is exactly what he's doing. So you're snitching. So the authorities should. Yeah, it's fair. So authorities should take action.
But nothing has really happened. Similarly, there are so many buildings that are sitting on waterways. I think it's just our wickedness towards our own selves, the wickedness towards the environment, the wickedness towards lack of compliance and all of that. Now, if you even visited some of these places, like for instance, La Paz, when you go there today, right now, even after the floods, people are still selling along the highway, and they've literally turned the whole place into a market, and nobody is doing anything about it. And when you talk about it, people say, for political expediency, if you want to lose the next election, then go and talk about it. But we forget that all of these things are compounding the problems. Now, Israel, you would admit that a few years back, even though we're seeing floods, it was not to this level. Now it's catastrophic. Now it's catastrophic. So you ask yourself, it beggars belief why we know of the perennial floods, we know of the recurring nature of the collapse of buildings, and yet somehow there's no policy prescription in dealing with this menace once and for all. Why? So it tells me, perhaps, that maybe somebody is making money out of our woes.
How though?
Well, I mean, that is perhaps the only reason why people are refusing to think. Because I shudder to think that if we really are concerned about the predicaments of the people, we would not have created a practical solution to addressing that menacing development that we are alive to.
I don't want to interfere, but...
So you shouldn't.
Yeah. Just one thing. People are even filling places with sand.
I was going to come to that. Because Israel, doesn't it surprise you that we know what the problems are? We know what the challenges are. And yet somehow we are not dealing with those issues. We know that we have to sail to the Odo. Don't we know that? When the issue happened, the June 3rd happened, right? There was a whole committee that was formed to investigate. It's as though even at the time, we didn't know what the problems were. We knew, but we still formed a committee to investigate why the floods and why the fires. What became of the recommendation from the committee? Nothing has happened from that time, 2011, I believe.
Yeah.
Is it 2011,
2015.
2015. Till today, have we implemented even a single recommendation in that report? No, none of them. So it tells you that we are comfortable. And I keep telling people that when you vote for leaders, you expect the leaders to demonstrate absolute care and concern. And they have to, necessarily show us how they are going to deal with that challenge. It's not enough that we go and we queue and we vote. We say, this year we are voting for this person, this year we are voting, without necessarily, asking the leaders to deal with our teething challenges. For me, that is the problem. I think somebody is benefiting from it. I really think somebody is benefiting from it.
So, Richard, a lot has been said, and even though Doc would suggest that, you're supposed to appoint a minister and all of that, the challenges that we are facing didn't happen under the regime. It didn't start with this regime. We've known them all this while. But yes, the responsibility, the onus is on you your government to take action. Is anything happening?
Leadership are put in place to resolve issues. So Kwame mentioned the June 3rd flooding and then the lives that we lost and all that. I remember that time I was in Geneva and the president was brought to make a presentation at the ILO conference. Because of the issue, he has to abandon the trip and send Harun Idrisu, who was the Labour minister then, to represent him. A committee was set up, like Kwame said. Out of that, World Bank gave us $250 million, the GhIE program. That money came under the SY administration. What happened to it? So until we depoliticize all these things, we can't find a lasting solution to it. So it's not about the NDC or the NPP. So even the individuals living around those areas, their life also matter. So don't you know that, like people living at Wager, when the dam is what do you call it? When there's any disaster or the spillage, it will affect your property. So why do you want to go and stay along that path? When it is raining, you see individuals throwing trash into open gutters. So we'll be talking and we'll go to sleep and nothing happens. When people are doing demolition, because people are building waterways, and you see, 2028 will come very soon, we'll punish you. And the politicians want to win the next election. So it's like kind of blackmailing. People don't want to do the right thing. But this administration is empowering the local assemblies. 80% of common fund is ceded to the local assemblies for development. So we can also help them to deal with such matters, together with what the central government will also allocate in support of all these issues. I heard the officer when he was making the presentation. He said even some of the facilities, they don't have fire extinguishers. So if the police facility don't have fire extinguisher, what about my old woman sitting in the village? But when they come inspecting your facility, you don't have it, they will cause you arrest. Go to the inspection division and see if they are well resourced to even go out there and inspect buildings or properties people are trying to put up. It takes 3 to 4 months for people to put up a building. So the integrity of even that particular structure is compromised. But we look on, you will see produce permits. The next day you see workers working around that same building. When did they produce the permits? Who even granted the permits? What kind of assessment did we do? And you allow people to bathe in waterways.
So as has been said, if we leave people to their devices, they will do any and everything.
Yes.
Which is why there are supposed to be laws and there's supposed to be enforcement of these laws. So that is critical. If we are not enforcing, people will do whatever they will.
So we need to crack the whip. So if you hear the Greater Accra Regional Minister doing demolition,
even before the demolitions, we should ensure that these things don't even happen in the first place.
Yes.
So that's at the core of the problem. You mentioned how people are building in waterways. Why are they even building in waterways in the first place? Are the authorities not seeing them start?
It's the corrupt nature of the officers that we put in place. Because the president cannot be everywhere anytime. And that's why he has appointed all these people to work for and on behalf of the state. So why do you allow ourselves to go into all this mess before we come back to complain? Look at what happened at the Cantamanto. Even they were fighting on compensations that they are giving to the police wives and they were not giving to other people who were trading over there. The point is, how much are they giving you? You've lost millions of cedis. So it's better to prevent it before it happens. So it takes two to tango. All of us must be responsible in our actions and inactions. All of us.
It's just indiscipline across the board.
Yes. All of us.
Do you think that
if you want to sit back,
we're ever going to solve these challenges that
we need a leader? Okay,
Doc.
Let me add one key thing, and this is troubling. During the transition period, when the presidency delays in appointing municipal chief executives, people use that gap to put up all kinds of things because nobody will be cracking the whip.
Are you sure?
Oh, trust me, these systems.
But the coordinating directors and the rest were at post.
I'm telling you, and these are some of the lapses in our governance. And let me, tell you that is the time that the party chairman is building. I mean, you get my point. When and I'm not saying it's an NDC problem. When the MPP takes up, the party apparatchiks are more louder, more powerful than these directors you're talking about. So we need to look at that carefully. And also, which we all are aware, that sometimes some people, when their parties in government, put up facilities and buildings that are not necessarily approved. And this is where I have a problem. Some buildings were not approved under the MPP administration, but now they are being put up. What has changed? Has the iron rod?
So you mean they presented their plans and it wasn't approved because
no, that won't be a conjecture. So we don't have the full facts.
These things are happening. This is reality, and as excuse me to say, let's open up the wound. If we don't, and we try and cover these things up, we'll have issues. I must call to attention. You remember Amwakwata? There's a very interesting building in this country. He went there trying to stop them. Today, it's all fully functional, okay? I don't want to be calling out names, but this is some of the realities we have in this country. And until people who do things with impunity are brought to book, and some major buildings which are owned by, political characters are brought down, then everybody will be doing anything in this country. So to add to it, we need a military-style approach at the assemblies. Very important. And that cuts away the corruption. And that one is no matter who it is, if that building has to come down, it has to come down. And then we need competent and well-equipped inspectors and people to ensure that, like I said, somebody will present a 2-story building and you end up seeing a 3-story building. Yeah. These are some of the problems in this country.
But even Israel, a quick one. Go to East Legon Hills. Go and see properties springing up. Many of them don't have even any documentation to it. So you are an individual. You went to the bank, you borrowed money, and procured this land or this property, whereas there's no documentation.
Lakeside.
Because of the name.
I'm believing that Lakeside is a gated community and it's put up by property developers.
Terrible.
What is happening there right now? After the show, just go there and see.
Terrible.
The flooding.
Oh my goodness. Terrible.
So you as an individual,
terrible.
Why do you put your money into these things?
Terrible. And then,
so if the open drainage is not helping us, then let's find another way, re-engineer the way
we need to move the capital. That's another thing.
Yes, we have to do re-engineering.
Absolutely. The capital, when it changes.
Because the mindset will never change. So if it is an open drainage, they will go and put trash in there when it's raining and it will get choked. And when they want to do the sorting, after the sorting, they just leave it there. So the next rain will also wash it into the gutter.
Yeah.
Right. So you're suggesting that we move the capital, but until we move the capital, this is what we have.
Well,
we're in here, and we need to figure out how to solve the problem right now.
So, Environment Minister, so that we limit.
No, this is not by environment.
No.
He's an individual.
Forgive me. What I'm saying is that governance is also about perception. If the president cannot appoint somebody who will tell us as Ghanaians that, one, the volume of rain has increased, we need that. And by virtue of that, people will be conscientized. You see, when your president does not regard the environment, it's a troubling thing.
You see, we should understand. Should we have a country where we need a minister before we do things? You'd expect
signaling.
That systems and structures are in place.
The institutions are there.
Signaling.
And the institutions should work.
But when you don't have an institution head, how can the institution work?
We're talking about the inspectorate division.
There's a reason why the Constitution says that we should have an environment minister.
No.
There's a reason.
No, there's nothing in the Constitution.
Over 6 months, no appointment.
There's nothing in the Constitution that says we should have.
And even let me add that this is a national
apart from Attorney General.
This flooding issue is now a national security issue. I mean, respectfully.
We need to appoint you as an environment minister.
If we're pushing it to, the lack of a minister, I'm not sure how because systems
we need to appreciate
and structures are supposed to work, whether there's a minister or not.
Well, unfortunately, I think that the buck stops at the presidency, and if the number one person in this country is not showing Ghanaians that environment matters, I mean that's my problem. So it's not about just the appointment of tells us Ghanaians that, listen, the environment is important, climate change is real, and that as a presidency, you are acknowledging the fact that the downpours are heavier. Listen, if we should check the metrics, the volume of rain, admittedly, has been more this year than last year. So these are the things we need to talk about. And once these volumes have increased, your dredging activity needs to be more. Are we dredging to match the kind of volumes we are having? Maybe no. And this is where there's a lapse. Yeah. This is the kind of language we need to hear that, looking at the volume of water and rain, the dredging activity needs to be upped. Maybe we need to get the military to support.
The national security, local government ministry, the other agencies who can take up this job.
Yeah. So let's bring an engineer into the conversation. Mm-hmm. Engineer Prince Kas-Avotri is Executive Secretary, Structural Subdivision, Ghana Institution of Engineering. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us this morning. Now, one of the questions I have on my mind is why are buildings collapsing when it rains or because it's raining? We've had the Adenta situation, and then just over the weekend we had the issue of Aveno. Is there any linkage at all?
Yes, I'll partially say so. Because on the Adenta side, we've done some preliminary checks.
All right.
Basically, we saw materials that were quite inferior during construction. And then we also saw that the structure was meant for a single story, but it was continuing. We saw that some columns were introduced in this looks too technical, but let me break it down. It's like we have some floating columns that are not starting from the ground. And then with this combination of factors and the rain coming down, water seeping into the ground to the foundations and slide movement, that's why we are having this effect. So the rain is more like a catalyst going through this unregulated flow of factors that we have.
All right. So essentially the foundation becomes soaked, and it compromises the integrity of the foundation. Is that
this is our third observation. We've not taken our time to do any forensic investigation yet. These are the preliminary things that we've done. However, we need to say that all the structures that we are seeing from our preliminary check they are not engineered. There are no drawings to them. There are no permits, which means that we did our own thing, which is contrary to the law. We are having the repercussions.
Hold on. So you're saying these buildings, or at least the Adenta situation that you're talking about, the structure was put up. As far as you're concerned, there are no drawings, or there's nothing
there are no permits. Yes, as far as we are concerned, there are no permits for it. There are no drawings. And actually, the assembly did informed us that they have written stop order several times on that particular structure, and it has gone over deaf ears. And we are also.
How is it that these stop orders go out and yet the buildings come up?
That's something that we all need to integrate. And we as an institution, we are working to put our policy document together to help in our own way to mitigate this whole situation. But it's something that all of us are involved, the media, all of us, to educate people on the right way of building and the right processes of putting up stuff in terms of social.
So educate us the right way of building.
So basically, they are the built environment professionals. The architects are more like what I call the plastic surgeons. They plan your space. They plan how your building should look like, the arrangement and everything. Then it goes to a civil engineer. The civil engineer, there are various aspects of it. They are what we call the geotechnical engineers. They also do the ground investigation to make sure that whatever load that is coming onto the ground, the type of soil, is ready to pick it up. And they also tell you the type of foundations that should be used for a particular structure based on the local area parameters that they investigate. And then we have the structural engineers who design the various elements. So it's basically the number of bars, the type of concrete, the strength of concrete, the right cement water ratio to use, the aggregate size. So they do all the calculations and they're able to sign off. And then these drawings are produced and then they are sent to the assembly. The assembly checks that the drawings are well done, signed off by professionals, and it is the right place for the building to be created. And they give you permit. Then you cannot start building. So basically, this is the process the law mandates all of us to go through.
So from what you've learned as far as the Adenta situation is concerned, and the fact that buildings actually go up, despite the assembly probably seeking to stop them, we can expect that there are a lot more of such buildings in the city.
Yeah, no problem. That's correct. There are a lot of them in the city. Our compound houses that people continue to add one floor to it. Industrial buildings. It's a space that sadly is unregulated, and sadly it's a field that even the agencies that are mandated to help sectors, they don't have the budget allocations from their various ministries to effectively do their duty. For example, the engineering council, like this, you can call the registrar and find out the budget that you have for the year. But that also helps to safeguard our growth environment space. The assembly, we all know the challenges the assemblies also have. So it's something that is, it's sad that a building has to collapse for us to be having this conversation. But I mean, it's a wake-up call. It's something we can start looking at as a country and as
what
media,
would you what would you suggest can be done, considering all the challenges that you cited? For instance, the assemblies are unable to go out there to inspect and check and ensure and enforce the regulations. What can be done? Do we just give up and expect the buildings to collapse so that we can have conversations about these?
I think we basically need to reinforce our assemblies and give them the power, and even give them a demolition order and stuff to be able to carry out their mandates. If we go around and we check or we see any buildings that have no permits and other stuff, we should. I think the law gives us mandate to get a demolition order and have it done. So it's more about enforcement, and it's more about education, and it's more about helping people to make the right choice.
Yeah. So this is what we're expecting the authorities to do. But if you had the opportunity to speak to Ghanaians and speak to the public, people who are putting up buildings, what would you advise them, and why do you think it's important for them to ensure that they get the necessary permits?
Yes, life is precious. Please see an engineer, see an architect. There are laws regulating their charges, so people cannot arbitrarily charge you just like the other professionals like lawyers do. There are regulations that control them. Seeing them is not expensive compared to the life that we have and the myth out there that seeing professionals will make your building expensive. In actual sense, you rather make savings on this, and the right thing will be done. So for you to build, be a professional, and let's sanitize our system.
Now, how about tenants, people who have moved into buildings or occupying buildings generally? Are there some things they should look out for that should tell them that probably this building could collapse on me?
Well, you see, I'm very conscious about our economic demography of the country. Yes, for the high-end populace, some of us, before they take over a building, they ask for a structural integrity report. So that means they see a structural engineer to test the building before they take over. But for the ordinary people, which is mostly the majority of us in the country, I think because of the housing deficits and things you have in the country, there are more systemic issues that we need to deal with. So because we have a deficit of housing, all sort of buildings spring up and people need a place to rest, and then they just go in. But for us to sound confident, please, when it's a story building, I mean, have a look. Let's all look at our lives and value our lives. And if possible, let's go on any engineers. I think we will try and set up a system that we have with the legal. We speak to the council. We come up with situations where, like something like engineering council, is that people can get advice on some of these things at minimal cost. So these are drastic things that we'll be looking at.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Engineer Prince Kas-Avotri is the Executive Secretary of the Structural Subdivision of the Ghana Institute of Engineers. And I believe he's helped us with some good tips. For instance, he's saying that if you're moving into a building or before you occupy a building, you may want to ask for the
structural integrity report.
Yeah, structural integrity report. Except, yes, like he's saying, if it's a chamber and hall and you're moving,
which most of us are in.
It becomes difficult to go ask for such things.
Yeah, I think his professional explanation helps the conversation. We can only look at it from the perspective of policy, but we oftentimes lose sight of the fact that there are other nuanced conversations that emanate from some of these things. But again, everything also finds expression in policy again, because if you have people who are reneging on ensuring strict compliance, of ensuring that people do not build on waterways, of ensuring that people acquire the necessary permits before they put up structures, we'll always come back to have these conversations, irrespective of the advice which may be given by professionals. So in the final analysis and in concluding on this matter, I believe that we must demonstrate political will, because some of the buildings which have sprung up belong to people who are powerful in society. And if we are not willing to deal with those so-called powerful people in society and pull down their structures where necessary, we will not be able to deal with this matter. And I give you a very practical example. So the Equiapim Togo range, the Equiapim Enclave, the mountain. When you are driving towards a GhIE, I don't know whether you've taken notice of it, that all the trees there are no longer there. People have now bought those lands and are building houses, forgetting that God did not put those trees there for nothing. It was to prevent the runoff, the runoff from the rains, from taking over your low-lying lands. But we have sold all those lands. People are erecting or building mansions there, and to the neglect of even drainages. People are just building anyhow. So these are some of the consequences we would face if we fail as a nation to deal with some of these pertinent issues. People go and they get permits. They just erect buildings. They don't, and last time, I don't know whether it was you or somebody who said that sometimes people themselves write, stop work or reduce permits. They themselves will write it on the wall so that assemblies will not come there. And before you could say, Jack, then they are done with their... It's just sheer indiscipline. You know? So
besides those who are actually building with permits, we're learning that there are lots of people too who actually don't have permits.
But you see, the point is that, hold on, and I explained to you,
added on.
When I'm still putting up a certain structure, right? But getting the permit was so difficult.
Okay, so that's another problem.
You know, the process that you go through in even procuring the permit. Again, whilst you wait, somebody is fighting with you over the same land. So people would want to secure their property first. That's the most important thing. Because they'll tell you that, Master, as for the permit, it will take some time. So you secure the land, secure the land. And you can only secure the land if you can demonstrate physical possession. Possession is not just, even in law, possession is not just you presenting document. Possession is actual occupation. So how do you demonstrate actual occupation? You demonstrate actual occupation by showing physically on the site that you own this land. Before now the permit
system is failing us.
I mean, the whole system is failing us. The whole system, all the sectors appear not to be working because there must be a certain synergy. There must be a certain symbiotic relationship between the performance of all the various sectors that are supposed to work to ensure that things work. But you see, they go to the assembly, they are on their own, go to NADBO, they are on their own, go to environment ministry, they are on their own.
Thank you.
There is no oversight responsibility on some of these things. And you see, the thing that he spoke about, and let me respectfully address it, is my big brother. And I agree with him that we need an environment minister. But that, like you said, rightly, timeously, intervened. That you don't need a minister to ensure compliance.
Signaling.
Systems. When I was growing up in Asante Mampo, we had something that we called tankers.
Yeah.
In Samansama.
Yeah.
Samansama and Bawo, and everybody's running. I didn't know of any minister at the time. My mother didn't know of any minister. But the mere fact that there was
they will come and inspect.
They will come into your rooms and inspect. Everybody was alert. So you don't need a minister to ensure people comply with laws. I say, and it's very controversial, don't say this, Kwame, don't.
Then don't say.
But you see, the introduction of a certain system where we had somebody collecting our refuse on behalf of the people is the beginning of some of these things that we are faced with.
Repeat that.
The introduction of a system where somebody was now asked to collect our rubbish, our refuse.
For a fee.
For a fee was the reason why people failed to keep their environments clean. Because they said, Nasa Ombabefa. I don't know. I'm speaking in parables. I know you know what I'm
But you're supposed to check if they are paying for that.
No, but you know that that was the beginning of our woes.
Well,
Israel, honestly.
They will come for the refuse, but you're supposed to gather them and set them up.
But what I'm saying is that people, you see, I'm sorry to say this again, but in Ghana we have a certain title. Okay.
And again, if we're left to our own devices when it comes to refuse, what we do is to burn.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's also not supposed
acceptable.
to be.
Yes. But when we're growing up, did you see much of the burning?
We're not consuming as much as now.
Yeah, but that is
keep that in mind.
So that's what I'm saying. It's years of lack of planning, culminating into a system where people felt that my duty to keep my environment clean has been taken away from me and given to somebody. I don't know if you get my point.
No.
Please,
because I want to think that, yes,
please.
Tidy up your environment. It's the refuse that you're supposed to put together and put it out of your house so that when...
So let me explain to you. And this is a practical example of somebody that I encountered back in the day who was drinking water and just littered. And I said, pick it up. He said, no, Zoom line for Babefa. Hold on. I am saying, you see, you are refusing to admit that is also part of it. And that is actually, but that is part of the problem. Because you see, we made nonsense of town council. We made nonsense of the people who were directly in charge of refuse collection. Because at the time, when they came, beyond the fact that Israel, you needed to keep your environment clean, there was also a system where they would now come and make sure that you do the right thing. I don't know if you get my point. That people were forced to do people were forced to do the right thing. So you know that the town council people will appear in maybe in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, right? A week or two. Around that time, you'd make sure that your environment are clean, your environment is clean, and that your garbage or refuse or whatever is properly collected, and then when they come, they can pick it up. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it was a mixed bag of enforcement and discipline. That's what I'm saying. Now there is indiscipline, and we are saying that we should gloss over the indiscipline to now the arena of enforcement. It doesn't work like that. It must be one and all, one and the same.
That's why I said the military
people,
style.
Yeah, people are extremely indisciplined. I'm telling you, when you go to
no doubt about
the Odor and they silt it, what do you see? It's not plastics.
Yeah.
Plastics. That's all you see. It tells you
and jeans.
that exactly. People are disciplined. So I don't know, maybe we should bring back the town councils. I don't know how it's going to work.
Probably.
You also have a system where there's lack of proper spatial planning. So the whole land administration system is problematic, right? That we don't even know that in this particular enclave, we are supposed to put up industrial buildings. In this particular enclave, it's for commercial purpose.
Yeah.
In this particular enclave, it's residential. There's nothing like that. So everybody gets up and he builds anywhere. People just build anywhere.
Even church noise.
Church and all of those things. We just do things anyhow. Now, in most cases, and I'm sure you are alive to it, that in some of the low-lying plains, they fill it up, forgetting that there's a reason why the land slopes. But they will fill it up and put up a story building, expecting that when it rains, the water, they will not be affected. But the other people behind that property will be affected. So I am simply saying that there is a whole problem that we must have a careful look at and proper solutions that are practical. Which solutions may not be palatable. People's homes may be destroyed, but the conclusion and the satisfaction should rest within the belly of knowing that, by taking these actions, the conclusion would be that the state or the country or the generality of the people of Ghana will benefit from it.
Richard, you've been quiet for a while.
The government is failing us.
You're mulling over, or you're just...
I'm just thinking around how we can resolve this matter once and for all. So, these civil servants, by the end of every month, they get paid. Do you understand? And many of them have become armchair officers. So you are going to do demolition. But when they were starting the project, where were you? So we should stop it right there before even it gets up.
So you see, this thing, I'll let you continue, but this thing about people being paid but not doing their jobs, it seems to be prevalent everywhere. But then they would also say, yes, you're paying me, but you're not giving me the logistics
to work,
to go out there. So if I'm supposed to go and inspect, I'm supposed to go out there. I need a vehicle. I need to go around to go and inspect these things. And even the inspections themselves, it's not just by seeing. Probably there are some tools that you're supposed to use to inspect.
Yeah, you're talking about tools of work. Like I told you in my initial summation, that this administration has taken a decision that the amount of money going to these assemblies, 80% should be dedicated for community development. Previously, they sit in Accra and award contracts and impose the contracts on them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not a part of things they expect, it's not their priority. But now, sit down with your assembly members, take your own decision. So if sanitation is the challenge, you dedicate some resources for it. Do you understand? And as officer, you have these resources. You don't sit in the office for people to start building before you go and write a produce permit. At foundation level, you stop it right there. Because if they start it and you go and do the demolition, you see the human face will come to play. He spent so much money and you're going to destroy his property. We voted for this government. We campaigned for you and all that. And we are politicians. We want to win the next election. So sometimes it's difficult to take the hard decision. So as officer, you are given payroll. Stop it right there before it gets worse. That's why you are there. That's why you're taking salary every month. You don't expect the president to walk or drive from Accra to go to my district and give instruction. Or you don't expect the minister. Though it's good to have a minister. It's about policy.
Signal.
Do you understand? You are doing the implementation on the ground. Fine. We need to resource those institutions, give them tools of work so that they can also deliver on their mandate. That one I do agree with them. but at least they have some resources of which they can use to deliver.
Do you also feel it's the way we go about the appointment of these people? I get a sense that when a new party comes to power, they get rid of a whole lot of people, and then they bring in a new crop of people who then maybe they're probably not qualified to be in that role, and so sidelined.
That's not the case. Because the civil servant, to be difficult, the only thing you can do is to transfer the person.
Yes, so you can still transfer.
And if you transfer the person, he's still going to perform the same function wherever he's going.
And bring in somebody. You know, sometimes they'll transfer you and take you to a place. It will give you a
secondment or
give you a certain role, which, you know, really doesn't count.
It is possible. So if you put a ramp and a square hole, these are some of the results you're going to get. So let's depoliticize all these things and allow the people to do their work, and we'll provide the resources and the supervision. So by the end of the day, we can save lives and properties. Somebody has lost his investment. The state is also going to spend our taxpayers' money to deal with all these matters. You see, NADMO is there, National Security is there, the police, everybody is there. By the end of the day, they will draw fuel, allowances.
And the vice president also had to be there.
And yes, to what you just said, NADMO, we need to
resource NADMO,
infuse it with very competent people, not necessarily party.
That was the point I was making initially. If World Bank has given you $250 million to deal with drainage in Greater Accra region, and we can't find the money.
Money is fungible, they say.
And now we are crying and we are blaming the new administration. What did you do with the $250 million?
No, I don't think we can do this cycle.
No. So the problem is we have to also...
People also say Kitasi defense. Where did the money...
So we need to be responsible of our actions. We need to be very careful because we are there to serve the people. If resources are allocated for a purpose...
Let him talk.
That purpose must be achieved. So assuming we spend the $250 million, we don't go back and be looking for another resources to deal with these matters. But now, initially said, NDC fix it.
But you see, this thing about it should not be political. Sometimes when I hear that,
no matter what, we have political leaders.
No, hold on. Every issue is a political issue.
Yes.
Every issue. So maybe you wanted to say that we should not partisanly politicize it. And usually that's where the problem comes in. Because the decision to, for instance, employ somebody who is competent to occupy a position is a political decision.
Yes.
Leaders will necessarily appoint people who will work for their benefit, albeit in the interest of the people, you know. So that is a political issue. So maybe then we should get away from that and look at ensuring that we employ people who are competent enough to occupy those positions and provide the solutions.
Yes.
So that is the conversation we should be having. Now, again, I agree with you 1,000,000% when you say that, when leaders come, they sack the people who perhaps have demonstrated some competence and bring in their people, even though they know that their people may not necessarily achieve the results that we are looking for. That is 100% correct. Now, how do we deal with it? People must begin to understand that political victory is not a party victory. When your party goes into an election and wins the election, after that, the president becomes the president of the Republic of Ghana. All the ministers that the president selects become ministers of the Republic of Ghana. They are not ministers for NDC or MPP.
Environment minister.
Now, it is therefore important that once we have this assumption cleared, and once we have come to the conclusion that they must not necessarily serve the interests of their own political parties, then they will move away from the peripheries of always appointing people within their party who may not necessarily have the technical knowledge to deliver. That is the conversation we must have. It is not a very palatable conversation, but we must have it.
At the end of the day, what I say is, if you allow the competent people to take charge,
you take credit for it.
You take credit for it. At the end of the day, things work better.
You take credit for it.
And then you get...
I know we're ending, but I need to add my voice on one key issue because I'm medically inclined. I think that, respectfully, the minister should reverse his decision on the suspension. I think he should. He's become a serial suspender now, which is not right. And I think that instead of looking at a system we do individualization, and I think that is not right. And then to conclude, this notion that you suspend somebody to do investigation, if that is the case, if we should reverse it on the minister, then he should also be suspended so that this issue is addressed. I think there's a very flawed, mental, that, something happens at the police station and then the commander has to be suspended for investigation. It is flawed.
I got into trouble when I
don't comment. I can comment, and I really.
But who brought in this?
That's why
you're talking about flag.
Yes, brought it, but
because I have to comment on
what
it
I'd
before I
like
leave.
us to conclude on, and we'll come to that. Is we've all agreed that the assemblies play a crucial role.
Very important. Local governance.
Does it then mean that we should be looking at, or the move towards having these local governors elected would be
it's part of the solution.
The solution to. But let's take some of the comments that have come in. So this one from Aaron says the urgent public alert issued by the Ghana Health Service warning citizens against a looming surge in waterborne diseases as the rainy season intensifies reflects a highly commendable, proactive institutional framework. However, mitigating this public health threat requires a corresponding escalation in aggressive community-level engagement and strategic public education to bridge the gap between institutional warnings and grassroots compliance. To effectively preempt an outbreak, the public must be equipped with comprehensive analytical insights and actionable preventive measures designed to neutralize vectors of waterborne transmission before the season peaks. And indeed, this also ties into the summon that we're talking about, because if these inspections were happening, they would be able to check some of these things. Let's see which other comment we have. We could go to Newton, I think, from Terman. So let's go to, okay. All right, so we have this one, Abdul Ganiu. This Abdul Ganiu Mankarigu from Savannah region. Doctors are frustrated, nurses are frustrated, and patients are also feeling the impact. Many health workers and teachers believe they receive better support under the NPP, but the promises made by the NDC persuaded many Ghanaians to vote for change. Today, the consequences of that decision are becoming increasingly evident. The health minister must reconsider his approach to addressing emerging challenges and adopt a more calm, strategic and thoughtful leadership style to effectively tackle the growing concerns within the healthcare sector. All right, next. Let's go to the next comment. We have, so Eben from Kwabinya says, the misinformation by the micro-minority leader to the public won't see the light of day in this era because we see the reality. You can't publish false information without justifying it. Want to go free. No, it won't happen under resetting agenda, period. Okay, next. Musa Abattoir, and as well as says, the recurring floods in Accra and Kumasi require urgent attention and lasting solutions. While authorities must improve drainage systems and urban planning, citizens must stop dumping refuse into gutters, true, which contributes significantly to flooding. Sanitation laws should be strictly enforced. True, and offenders held accountable. Combating flooding is a shared responsibility that demands commitment from both government and the public. Absolutely right on that. Master Planner says, I find it very interesting listening to NDC communicators saying we shouldn't do politics with this flood issue. President Mahama did politics with it, and most of the NDC communicators, they say in a position they should stop the hypocrisy and solve the issue. President Anado committed $230 million to construct various drainage systems to deal with this flood issue in Accra, one at Adenta around Snake Flat, another at Hacho around Wisconsin University, another at Santa Maria, one at Nima Kaukudi, and several others. You know the interesting thing, all these projects have been abandoned after a change of government. The NDC used to make mockery of these projects, tagging President Akufo-Addo of using our taxpayers to construct gutters. Today, you are caught in the web. All right, next up. So we have this one from Kweku Baku Jr. Fuase says, The recent flooding in Accra, which has caused significant destruction and hardship for many residents, raises serious concerns about leadership and governance. While in opposition, President John Mahama criticized similar situations and assured Ghanaians that such challenges could be addressed through effective leadership. Given the severity of the current flooding situation, some citizens believe the government must take full responsibility and be held accountable for its response and preparedness. If Ghana were to apply the highest standards of political accountability, many would argue that a vote of no confidence should be considered, as this is being described by some as one of the worst flooding incidents in recent years. All right, thank you, Kuku Baku Jr. Now, this one says the devastating flooding in Accra has caused immense hardship and loss to many people. Since President Mahama previously criticized similar situations while in opposition, many believe his administration must now take responsibility for the current crisis. Some argue that stronger accountability is needed, considering the scale of the disaster. All right. Then let's see if we can take probably one more. Kwamena Acidity for good morning. The suspension of the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital CEO is a step in the right direction. The NDC government will do everything possible to complete Sewa and Agenda 111 Hospital and reduce congestion at Kath. Special greetings to Chairman Sadiq Ahafo, Regional Organizer of NDC Hopeful. And this one, there was no desilting in the HS of Akufo-Addo of any gutter. All the gutters are choked. Common weeding of the median roads were not done. Now it is showing in the flooding we're witnessing. God save Ghana. That's Patrick from Accra. I think we would then come back to the studio and for the concluding, because I was asking about whether you think the election of local governors could be the solution to this problem. So then they take charge of the situation in
it's on the table for discussion, and then let's see if majority of the people will call for the referendum, so that when they are elected, they'll get to know that they are responsible for their municipalities.
Not the party.
Because, yes, they'll go for another election. So your performance will determine if the people will vote for you again, like we do. There are places you go and then they confront you with challenges. You tell them to go to themselves, say, no, we didn't vote for them. It's you we voted for. Do you understand?
Exactly.
And some of them, they don't care. They sit there and money is transferred from Accra to their account.
Yeah.
And they just use it. And they know when the party wins the next elections, they'll be maintained.
Yeah.
But if they'll go to the people to renew their mandate, they'll be responsible. All these things, we can reduce it to the barest minimum. Quick one on what Koku Bakun just sent to you, that the Bank of Ghana is managing the economy. What is the work of Bank of Ghana? What is their mandate? That's a bank of last resort. So we have our bank and then want the bank to intervene in the market to bring stability. You want us to go and borrow money and pay interest. What kind of arrangement is this?
Right. Yeah. So I was going to also add that once the elections happen, there'll be also a clear delineation in the responsibilities of the members of parliament and the municipal
local government.
Because right now, in all fairness or in all honesty, many of the municipal work seem to be, given to the members of parliament, which then once people have to go to, get the mandate of the people, now the municipal chief executives will be categorically stating their duties, which the mass population think to a large extent that the duties of the MP, and for that matter, we suffer the brunt of that, and it's going to be difficult. This referendum thing is not going to be easy. Knowing how Ghanaians are very difficult in terms of changing. But I'll wait to see. It'll be nice to see it. If it happens, fine. It also reduces the presidency's ability to then pick people, which,
Israel, there are pros and cons. In as much as I agree with the election of local authorities, it is also important and instructive to know that if, for instance, NDC is in power and the community votes for an MPP person, there's going to be a challenge because of the extremely polarized nature of our politics. So, yes, it is good, but we must make sure we try and identify and perhaps look at the fine balance.
If you vote for the person and the resources are at that assembly or within the district, you can use it to...
I agree.
No, frustration.
Yes, you got the point. So, because And
they don't share the same ideology with the executive.
And what the president may perhaps
But what we
because
are
every
looking for is what
development. Okay, so hold on. Every president comes with their own manifesto, right? And so they elect people who identify first of all with their manifesto and who can ensure that that what is contained in the manifesto are effectively achieved, right? If you go in for, or if they vote for somebody who does not necessarily align with the president, they can actually sabotage the project, and then the president will. So it is. Anyway,
at the end of the day, it's what Ghanaians decide.
No, but one suggestion which is coming up is select 3 or 4 people from your party and let them go for the people to take a decision on them.
That is also brilliant.
Yes.
That one would be at least within the same ideology.
Yes.
Yeah. But then they will be voted for by the
to avoid friction between the local level and then the executive.
One last thing, when people are performing as MCs, they should focus on their work, because most of them, when they get the opportunity and they make money, they want to come and take out the MP.
Yes.
That's what.
And you see them frustrating the members of parliament.
So they must make sure they decouple
interesting thing.
their personal interest from that of the people.
All right, thank you.
And Akando must rescind his decision.
No. It's not part of our discussion.
I have brought it,
so it's okay.
But the union is dealing with this. I know at least
I'm a medical practitioner.
They'll sit back and resolve all these issues. So
I have to add my voice.
Rest assured, they to be resolved.
All right. So thank you very much. Our guest for this morning has been Richard Parliament. Yes. Dr. Adomako Kisi, former Member of Parliament, Enyaso Utum, and Kwame Wusu Danso, lawyer and Executive Director, Lands and Mines Watch Ghana. Thank you for your.
Thank you, Israel.
With us. But we also have on the line Adobia Sare, who's a motivated journalist who is at Aveno, where the site of the building collapsed, to give us the very latest on that. Adobia, good morning to you. What's happening where you are? Hello, Adobia. If you can hear me, what's happening where you are? I'm learning that you're at Aveno, the site of the building collapse. We know that one person was confirmed dead yesterday, a number of people injured. They were trying to access the building. Is there any update on that, Adobia?
Yes, Israel. I'm finding it difficult to hear you, but I believe you're asking about the Aveno collapse and if the update. Well, the debris is still being collected at the site where the building collapsed. As we speak, now officials started cleaning the site from yesterday after there was thought that there was tunnels exploded. Now, coming small, that the particular yesterday have no the senior officer the Ghana of engineering who tells us that they collected some from the site. They are going to run some tests to be able to ascertain what exactly caused the fire. But for now, what they can tell us is that they confirmed from the assembly that the building had no permit, and so there was no submission of architecture drawings whatsoever. So it's as if from what he's saying, it's as if the assembly has no idea about this particular. That's what saying that the building has no permit. It's the reason about. And that's what we started so far. So the debris is being clear. The fact that it has been cleared, the land is almost being very clear now. And we are sure that after today, looking at the work we've done so far, definitely after somewhere around noon, definitely will be clear enough.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Adobia. If there's any other update, I believe you would be sharing that with us. But it's clear from what you're saying that the Assembly is saying that this building had no permit, which means together with the Adenta incident, where the Ghana Institute of Engineers is saying that also had no permit, we probably are dealing with quite a number of these buildings in the city that do not have permits. But beyond the fact that it's been found out that the building didn't have permits, it means that somebody has to take the fall for it. If the building didn't have a permit and it was put up and we found out that this is the situation, somebody has to be held responsible because lives have been lost in these two tragedies.